welcome back to another episode of Over the Glass. I am your host, Jay.
Na yung co-host Nessa. What are we on today?
And well, today I wanted to kind of open up with when I saw this tweet on my feed, I had a moment where I was like, that's not real. Like this is one of those like troll accounts, right? Because the thumbnail for the link says understanding the code in hockey. And you all know, if you've been listening for the last couple of weeks, ever since the Morgan Riley and, by extension, anytime something stupid happens in this league where aggro toxic masculine hockey men decide that they need to like pound someone's face in, and they mention the code as a reason for it, and then we all do a collective eye roll. That's how I feel when I saw this. And I was like, you know what? Curiosity is going to kill the cat today. I'm going to click on the link and be like, God, what is this? Like, and I think this was like a day or so after we recorded last week. And I was also thinking about how Drew was joking about like, where can I find this code book? Can we download it somewhere? Can we understand what's going on? Because every time it gets brought up, it just seems like it's this made up thing that I guess unless you are part of the culture and it gets handed down to you, that is really the only way that you're going to understand it. And we just have to let it be. But as we can see, this past week, where Morgan Riley got he wanted to go in person, but the weather was not agreeing on the East Coast, so it ended up being a virtual, and he ended up getting 5 games. And I think that's fair. Judging from the Department of Player Safety's current track record this season, with them giving David Perron 6 games, and I guess he had a prior history, whatever he had done resulted in a fine. And Morgan Riley does not have any history, so I guess maybe that's kind of coming into play. So they decided to give him 5. But leading up to that, there were, a bunch of folks talking about it, ourselves included. And in this TSN panel, it was, dang it, I forgot his first name, but it was Martin Biron, it was Gino Rita, and I'm looking up real quick who was the other dude involved. I don't remember. His last name is Hayes. And it was like 10 minutes of Biron and Hayes
Brian Hayes.
there you go. They were just, as you would imagine, being former old men hockey players, they're agreeing like, yeah, well, Greg deserved, getting something done to him, and Riley's basically like not gonna take this sitting down. He needs to deliver a message and all this stuff, and Veron's like, yeah, this and that, and they're just like in their own, what do you call it, their own echo chamber. And you can imagine, as we've talked about, like kids that come up in this culture, at what point do they start kind of like getting this feeded to them? And if you're only around your other hockey bros and you're traveling with your hockey bros, and like if you're really trying to make this a career, then you're leaving home at like a preteen age and you're just eat, sleep, breathe hockey. This is kind of like the end result. You have other guys who are just agreeing with your mindset, and after like 8 minutes or so of them echo chambering, like agreeing with each other, then Gino Rita comes in and basically is the sole voice of reason on that panel. And it was like a breath of fresh air where he's basically just like, no, like, what are you guys even talking about? Like, and I just, it's exhausting. It's exhausting to have seen that like all week, at varying degrees, between folks that you'd expect it from and folks that surprised us to see that were coming more at Greg for having done what he did, which, as we've talked about, like myself, I was saying I don't understand how it's any different than a Selly. And my friend that I was hanging out with last night, I even brought it up to him, and he's like, "Oh, that's a good point," and I'm like, "Yeah, I don't understand why there's these certain lines crossed, whether or not there's like a goalie net, whether or not like there's X amount of minutes, and all comes back to we always get told, well, it's part of the code. It's like I need the manual for what you're saying because you all are just like making no sense and you're just
You're just making shit
you're
up to be offended.
yeah. And I don't remember exactly if it was Gino who said it or something else that I'd seen along the way, but people were being like, oh well, he's got to do it because the Leafs are going to look soft. And it's like, oh, I remember what Gino said. He basically said that like Riley clearly shows that he did it because his feelings were hurt, not because it was any sort of like, how dare he not, how dare he take that slap shot? Well, he's got to answer because whatever part of the code book says, I must do something to you. It's like, no, your feelings got hurt. And there's all this talk about like, oh, well, they're going to look soft. Like, your feelings got hurt and you cross check someone in the face.
That's pretty soft.
Like, like if someone cuts you off in traffic, do you get to get out of the car and like punch them? No, I think you get arrested when you do that. Like, but somewhere along the way, once you enter the building and hop onto the ice, like all of that stuff, like when we see certain things happen on the ice, like maybe less so in more recent years in hockey, but if you go back like a couple of decades where things were way more loose, like some of that, like you could outside of the rink, you're getting arrested for that. But like in hockey, they're like, it's fine because the code.
It's part of the game. Assault is part of the game. You can get away with so much playing this stupid sport that we love so much.
And they just decide amongst themselves that this is okay behavior. But anyways, I don't want to spend too much time talking about that. I just want to mention that one part that I saw. And apparently Riley is appealing his 5-game suspension. And while he's out, well, looks like the Leafs are doing
Great.
good stuff. Who was it they were playing last? Oh, they were playing the Ducks. I think it was like 9-2.
Poor
Ducks are
things.
terrible.
Been there,
Like,
done that.
okay, in as Sharks fans, I find it very amusing, and maybe I'm missing these these commentaries or these tweets along the way, but how much crap were people in the media and just in the fandom giving the Sharks earlier on this
So much
season?
shit. So much.
And like
I
Nashville got annihilated last night. The Ducks. I'm like the
the
time
lightning.
the yeah, and then the Penguins like a month ago. Like I must not be getting that stuff in my algorithm because I don't see the same level of shit talk that outside of outside of Sharks media and fandom we're getting at the beginning of this year. So, curious,
Right.
very
And I feel
curious.
like these teams are better than the Sharks, so I feel like we should have been hearing it more then. Like, I understand the Sharks were were annihilated, as you put it, twice in a row. Those two games that they lost by 10 in a row. I get that. That's crazy. But how long were people talking about how much the Sharks sucked? It wasn't just like the day or the 2 days. It was like at least a week, which is really long for a new cycle in hockey. And I haven't heard anything about the Ducks or the Lightning. And it just happened last night. Maybe I saw a few tweets here and there, but it was like people trolling. I didn't see really anything from the media. That's so frustrating. This is why I say, like, people don't like us over here.
We're just an easy target, you know? Like people know that we're in a rebuild. Like it's been pretty obvious. But like you said, some of these teams like the Lightning, like well, I don't really know if we could say the Penguins. They're in a bit of like a limbo right now. Like I
Yeah.
think they want to be good, but that's not really working out for them. But teams that are not that are supposed to be fighting for the playoffs and they come out and get completely like blown out versus the Sharks are supposed to be bad.
Everyone
And
was
they're just
talking
like,
about it.
oh, wow, look at the Sharks. It's like, yeah, look at us doing
Everyone,
exactly as intended.
right. Everyone was talking about how bad this team was going to be at the beginning of the season, or even before the season started. Like, this team is going to be so bad. Look at this roster. This is like good luck,
Yeah.
Sharks fans. And then it happens,
Yeah,
and then that's all you want to
thank
talk
you.
about.
We're tanking. We're doing as intended. Please congratulate us. But instead, they're like, oh, wow, they're losing. Like, yeah,
Why are you surprised?
what? It's so annoying. Like, yeah, we're not in like last night when I think when the Blue Jackets went up 3-1.
Yeah.
I was telling my friend, I was like, yeah, it's fine. We're not here for a win. I don't come here for wins.
Right. I'm here for this,
I
like,
was
to
chill.
have a good
I was
time.
hanging out with a friend. We were, catching up and stuff. It's like, yeah, we know what's up.
It is what it is. And then they
Everyone
tied
else
it.
needs to,
How excited were you, though? It was pretty good.
until they didn't.
Yeah, I know.
Last night when I was texting my friend that I got home, and he was like, yeah, thanks for the company tonight. And I said, yeah, the Sharks were good company too until they weren't.
What
We were like,
so
when that
sad.
happened, we were like, oh.
Yeah, you're like,
We're like, all
let's
right,
go.
time to go
Oh,
home.
okay.
Oh,
Like, we're
oh,
so
well,
used to it.
okay.
Oh, it's one of those games, I guess. Just
We're
another
like,
one.
whatever. It's fine. We were chill. I wasn't worried at all. Zero worry vibes last night. Um, but anyways, let's move on to the Stadium Series.
So I was only able to catch a little bit of it last night. The second one is currently going on as we're recording, so we don't know what's happening. We'll check on that after. But my favorite part of any outdoor event, whether it's the Winter Classic or any stadium series, is how the teams decide to arrive to the stadiums, because they always pick a theme. They're always matching, wearing the same outfits, whatever. The Kraken dressed up as fishermen. It was really cute. Who were they playing? I forget. I
Um,
forget. That's how memorable it was. I forget how the opponent team dressed up. Last night, Jersey played Philly, and they both decided to dress up. Philly dressed came dressed as Rocky in the sweats with the beanie, which was okay. I get it. And then Jersey came out wearing a freaking tracksuit with the white tanks underneath and like the chains, and it's fun.
which I think was a reference to The Sopranos.
Probably, yeah. It's a
Yeah.
very Italian mafia thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This morning, both New York teams, um, The Rangers, I guess, had a theme and they just came out wearing their jerseys, different jerseys. There's a red one and a blue one. I don't really keep up with the team, so I don't know what those are about. If you want to explain a little bit about it.
Well, they came out with it's supposed to represent the police department and the fire department, and they came out with like
Oh,
representatives from those respective departments, and I was just like, fine. Just
listen, I'm
as
not
I
even
was
a.
saying, as I was saying to you before we hopped on, I was more disappointed of how ugly Mika looked with that jersey on. I was like, fine, whatever. Like, I'm not even, it's whatever.
Of all the
But
things. Sorry, continue.
but what is worse, I guess, with as I've come to be acquainted with Lou from the Islanders, apparently has this thing
He doesn't like
I
fun.
yeah, like I first came about this when what's his bucket from the Knights, the goalie. Why is it at tip of my tongue and I can't
Which,
remember now?
oh, Leonard.
Yeah. So he was previously on the Islanders, and there was this thing a couple years back. And when he was more active on Twitter, he had mentioned, that like, I guess he had to honor Lou or something like that. He had like shaved his beard. So there's, for me, there's this understanding that he's got a certain rules that he has within the organization. And this is just like, I guess like you've got to just keep with the theme of
Being boring.
he wants you to be like professional looking or something, and they have to just show up in their regular outfits and have no fun whatsoever. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
that's extra boring that they're just like, yeah, we're just here to play a game. What? Like it's outside?
Like, why agree to
Um,
do something like this if you're not going to have fun with it? How is coming dressed as you normally do for regular games going to be fun for the fans?
they're I guess they're just treating it like a 9 to 5, just
It's
coming in, doing your job. And
boring. Okay, listen,
but
New York is one of the most diverse cities in the world. I'm so upset that both of these teams decided to choose the most bland ways to represent the city. Like, they could have done something with fashion. They could have done something with, I don't know. There's a huge like Latin culture up there with Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and stuff. There's a huge Asian population. There's all these things, but no. Instead, you choose to do nothing and freaking honor the NYPD. Like, I'm not even going to get into that topic because I can go on a whole rant about that. But like, come on, even do some like as a huge Spider-Man fan, they could have just dressed up as Spider-Man. That would have been fun.
it's just too much fun. That's too much fun.
Ugh, so boring.
So, as I was mentioning, when I saw that the Islanders basically showed up and nothing fun, I looked up what they could have done. I don't know a whole lot of these movies. I just picked out the ones that I knew right off top of my head. Apparently, Amityville Horror took place
Yeah.
on Long Island. I don't know how they could like do that in a way that could be fun, that wouldn't be like strange to put on TV. But I just wanted to make that like an honorable mention that that's just one that I was familiar with. Another one that might have been super fun, Weekend at Bernie's. Like that could have been iconic. This one, I don't know if work out so well. Maybe they could get creative, but ultimately I don't think it worked. Jaws.
That would
So
be interesting.
those were a
I feel like
few.
if the Sharks were ever to play one of the New York teams in one of these, that would be a perfect theme.
Possibly, possibly. Um, there was one other, but I don't know how you would make this so that it was recognizable. The Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind.
Hmm. I
I don't
haven't
know if that
seen
would
it.
work out so well.
Just dress up
But
as
those
depressed
are just
people.
like a few suggestions. A few suggestions that could have been fun. You didn't have to go all out. You could have just it's just like a cap tip to the area that you play in. But if you want to just show up in your basics, I guess that works too. Hmm,
Hmm.
hmm.
Hmm. Freaking dress up as the Statue of Liberty. Come on. Just do something.
I would have loved that. I would have given them props, but instead,
It's so lame. Anyways,
um,
I'm sick. Back to the Sharks. Unless you have something else to say.
no. Yeah, so Saturday the Sharks had their Lunar New Year celebration. The logo kicks major ass. I did see afterwards that they had a couple of the Sharks, or at least the ones that they put on socials, walk in with the jerseys and things like that. I'm not the biggest fan of it being on a gray backdrop. Like I wish it could have been a little more,
Red?
but
It would have been better on red. Like the
uh
lucky color for Lunar New Year.
yeah, just I guess so. The friend that I went with last night had one of the jerseys from last season for Lunar New Year with that design. I guess he got the one that has all of the autographs from all the players on it, and I didn't know this before because I don't really have the money to bid on that sort of stuff or don't really care. A big reason outside of spending way too much money to pay for a jersey that's signed. Since they're the ones that the players wear, like I would never wear that to a game because it would be dragging on the floor. So I don't want to spend like $600 to get the one that the players wore and then they just hang up in my closet the whole time. So among other reasons why I don't. Anyways, so I don't usually look at the auctions, but he told me as I brought up like I wish that they would sell them so I could actually get one in my size and all that stuff. He said apparently there is one that you can bid on and then you can get it in like the size that you want and customize things like that. And I said, "Oh,
That's cool.
I didn't know that." But there's
I
only just the one.
oh oh well yeah, because if it's bidding, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually looking through the sports shop last night because now that I have a little bit of money, I'm trying. I can actually buy things, right? And I'm trying really hard not to purchase everything at once because whatever. But I was curious because the Sharks score the first goal and they do the promotion with the 20% off until midnight online, right? So I was just looking through all of their collections and the Los Tiburones one that they had this past year, or I guess this season, but last year, they actually have a jersey for sale. It's like $100 on online. Like you could just buy it. I wonder why they don't do that with all of them. Unless they
Hmm.
were trying it out and it wasn't selling, so they decided not to do it for the rest.
Like I can see how from a business and marketing standpoint, like it's hard to gauge if something like that, like a specialty night, like we know as fans, like we see like people being like, I would buy that. But then again, are you saying that to show how excited you are
Or
for
will
it,
you
or
actually
would
put
you
your
like
money where your mouth
legitimately?
is?
Because we have seen like the Canucks, I don't know if they've done it since then, but their pride jersey several seasons back,
Those
they
sold
actually
out.
were selling it.
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah, they did. Because I was looking into
Hmm.
getting one. I wasn't making enough money, but I really wanted one. They were like
Hmm.
$600 a piece. And when
Mm-hmm.
I went back at one point just to the store, they were sold out.
Okay. So I think they're it's possible. Now, is it possible for every specialty night jersey? And how do you kind of, because I can see the potential where, I mean, especially now, like we still have a pretty dedicated Sharks fan base, but you know, like it's not. I think in a market like the Hawks, like any of the Canadian teams, like even in a season like what we're having, like I don't think that we compare to the turnout and to the diehard level.
Mhm.
So from the Sharks point of view alone, I can see why they don't have them readily available in the store and for purchase. So I can understand that. But on a on an adjacent topic, I did like seeing. So last night was actually pretty packed at the Shark Tank. It was nice to see, and it was also I haven't been to a game in a while where it's been that way. And so 5 minutes in, I was like, God, I hate crowds. Like I was just like, this is so annoying. And I'm like, but also like, oh, look at all these people
Yeah.
tonight. But I was just like, ugh.
It's too much, too many people.
Because I was just trying to like get somewhere and people are just like in their own bubble. And that was the part that was annoying me. I was just like, well,
This is
can
why
I
I don't
get
leave the
somewhere?
house.
Like, can we figure out a way? Can this be the going in this direction and this side be like, can we get some order here? But no. Um, and but I did like seeing, and this is just me making an observation. I don't have any additional information, but I did see a number of Asian families who were there. And my first thought was like, oh wow, they're here for the Lunar New Year celebration. And because they weren't like decked out in like sharks gear and stuff, like it made me think like, oh, maybe they're like a casual fan, or maybe because it's Lunar New Year celebration, they wanted to come and see like, oh, let's come here and celebrate as well. So I liked seeing that. Just assuming that they're not a Sharks fan on a regular basis. It's nice that you know nights like this kind of bring in non-traditional folks to the sport, which is what we always
It's always
talk
fun to
about,
see.
growing the game. It's like they don't have to be a diehard fan to just be like, oh, they live in the Bay Area. Give them a reason to come out to a hockey game. And for the most part, it was entertaining until the last 40 seconds. And I did really like seeing. So I originally had gone earlier because I was thinking, oh, I really want to see like the Lunar New Year merch.
Mhm.
I took one look at that line. I was like, not today. I was hungry. I wanted to like do a few other things. And I was like, you know what? We'll just come here later because I don't live that far away. So, but I thought maybe I would get errands done. Um, but then I walked by one of the kiosks, like one of the ones outside of the store, and I happened to see that the Lunar New Year scarf was hanging there, and I was like,
It's so good.
yeah, because that was one of the ones that I wanted to go to the store and look at, among other things. So, and then I ran into Kurt.
Kurt, like
He was Kurt
Teal
from
City.
Teal City Crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was walking by. This was right at the back entrance where like the lot entrances. Yeah. So as I was staring at this scarf, getting ready to like ask the dude, like, can I have that? Like he came walking by. So I got to see him.
Fun
And
fact, I saw him at the last game I went to too. Like I was walking behind him as we were all leaving the stadium or the arena. But I was way too tired to yell to get his attention because I was screaming all night. So I was just
oh,
like looking at him like, next time.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so I got this.
It's so
and it's
cute.
cute.
It's so good. I
I
love it
really
so
like
much.
this fin
Yes.
because it's adorable. I want it on everything.
Show the other side so people can see.
And then the fun lion.
Oh, it's so good. I love this so much. I
All of
love
it is super cute.
when the designs hit.
Super cute.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this month, besides that, they also have the Black History Month design, which I don't know if they've actually advertised it at all on socials, but it's cool because it's very 90s themed. Like, I think the shark is biting a cassette tape in half, and the background there's like a boombox. It's really cool vibes. I like it. Like I'm always really happy with the designs that they do for these special events and nights and things. I think I really want to head to a Lunar New Year night because I love watching the lion dances. I've mentioned this before, like last year. It's like my favorite part of Lunar New Year. I used to be part of a kung fu school who actually did lion dancing, and watching people practice for those. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of heavy lifting, being having to carry your partner and stuff, and you just kind of grow an appreciation once you see the behind the scenes stuff. But it's so captivating when you actually watch it, like the actual dragon dance that they do. It's so mesmerizing. I love it. Were you able to get any of the red envelopes, or did you see any?
You get a $5 discount to the shark store.
$5 is that's silly, but like the design on it was the
Yeah.
yeah, that's the main part. That's $5.
Oh, and then I did like seeing people walking around with the merch on.
Yeah,
People had gone out to get the Lunar New Year merch, and it wasn't just Asian people. There were, people who I assume don't have Asian background or anything like that. So it's a really great design. So obviously, yeah, go get it. So yeah, just like little observations that I saw, I
shout
thought
out to
was
the
really nice.
Sharks for knowing how to market this year. All right, what is I for please ask what was your question earlier about the players on the team that might
About
get
the
you?
roster?
Yeah.
Are we gonna talk about the Zodiac thing? That's
Oh
what I have
right,
up
I
next.
forgot already. I'm
I was
sorry.
like, wait, what?
Oh my god. Listen, I'm recovering from a burnout. I had a really rough week. Valentine's Day at a florist shop. Anyways, so last night I was able to catch the one game this week the Sharks played out of the three. And Tara Sloan had a little segment thing before the Sharks started playing again, and she was talking to Randy and Drew about their Chinese zodiac signs and what they meant. I forgot what Drew's zodiac sign was, but I think she said that Randy was a tiger, which characteristics are brave, confident, competitive, and unpredictable.
I don't know about the unpredictable part, but okay. The other stuff checks out.
My zodiac sign is a
Okay,
monkey.
maybe the unpredictable is things like when he shows up like like during Pride night and he was just doing like little random like things during the breaks. So like a positive
Yeah,
unpredictable and not
yeah.
like a chaotic unpredictable.
Yeah, I really can't remember what Drew was, or maybe I don't know. Anyways, I do remember her saying one of them was a tiger. My zodiac sign is the monkey. I was born in the year of the monkey. My characteristics are sharp, smart, and curious. I am probably one of the most curious people you will ever meet. I have a hard
You're
time.
definitely someone that asks why a lot. Just because, Nessa.
But I want to know
But
why.
why? But why?
I want to know. Just tell me. I don't know what it is. Like it gets the better of me. I need to know things. I'm so curious. Anyways, what's your sign? What?
I am a pig.
Oh, so is my mom. Yours is compassionate, generous, and diligent. I think you're pretty diligent.
So I have a story from work on Friday. I went to help someone set up their new headset for their phone, and this person is I don't. It depends on the person. I don't particularly like going in person to help people because I don't like small talk. And one, just in general, I don't like smart talk. Not smart talk, small talk.
I
I
love
don't
smart
really
talk.
like small. I like smart talk. I don't like small talk. I don't like small talk in general, and then I don't like it when I am doing a. I'm there to do something because it's distracting. And so when I was going over to this person's cube, I was like, "Oh, this is one of those chatty people. Hopefully, I can get out of this like okay without feeling really awkward." Um, so I get there, and the first thing she says is "Happy New Year, Jay," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, Happy New Year." I believe she's Vietnamese, and then so she wanted to talk about it, and I'm like, "Uh-huh." Like putting her stuff together, and then she asked me like what I was, and I told her I'm a pig, and then she was like, "Oh my god, like everybody wants to be a pig, it's such a good zodiac and it's such a great animal," and I'm like, I'm like, "Thank you, I whatever." And she was asking me if I celebrate with my family and things like that. And I said, "Oh, not really. Used to do it a lot as a kid, but older, like everyone's like dispersed and stuff like that." And then she asked me what time I was born. And when I said I was born in the morning, she got even more excited. I was like, "What is going on?" And then she also mentioned that apparently like pigs are supposed to be really smart, which she said like, "Oh, that makes so much sense for you." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh,
She's just
like
giving you all the
thank you."
compliments.
She's giving me, oh yeah, and like for anyone who's spent any amount of time with me, like I've decided that is like my kryptonite. If you give me so, because I don't know how to react. And this was a thing that I realized when I was growing up. And I think it's a bit just in general how I am. And then also growing up in an Asian household where the bar was kind of set a bit higher. And like you don't get praised for just doing what everyone expected you to do. So I got very little, like, how do I say it? Like, obvious praise. Like they show it in a different way, and it's not so verbal, and it's not like we're gonna throw you a whole party because you passed the seventh grade, like. But then I would see it with my non-Asian friends, and it would be confusing because I would almost be like, "God, why are you getting like a party for just
Doing what you're
like
supposed to.
getting a good report card? Like what is this is so it was really yeah, I just found myself in situations where I would stand there like almost frozen because I'm like, I don't know how to react to this. And for a while, like people thought I was rude because I don't say anything. And it's like, no, you legitimately caught me off guard. I don't know how to respond to this. I don't see this on a regular basis. So now as I've gotten older, like I still kind of like, I think I fight my own natural instinct to feel like you're being a little over the top with praising me for that. Um, but I've gotten better at kind of having like an automatic response to certain things. But if you do it constantly, like on top of each other, you
You
almost
run out
like,
of thank yous.
yeah, you almost short circuit me. and then I get anxious, and then I like think back on it being like, oh God, I hope I wasn't rude by not saying anything. But you just like, you need to stop.
Stop flattering
You really
me.
need to stop complimenting me. You're putting me in an awkward position that I don't know how to react to this. Please stop.
That's
Please
so
stop.
funny.
Like
I
like every now and then when I'm texting some of my closest friends and they'll like say something really nice, like I'll just text back the gif of like Goofy going
yeah.
because that is exactly how I feel.
That's how it
It's just
feels
like I
sometimes. I get
don't,
it.
or like what's his name, Bashful
Yeah.
from
From Snow
yeah. I'll
White.
just be like, oh, I don't know how to react to this.
I feel it.
Anyways, that's
I feel it.
anyways.
I'm shy. Okay, so we still haven't really met in person, so you haven't really seen a lot of my shyness that I could have. But and obviously we're comfortable with each other now, so I don't know if you'll actually see it now. But like when I'm first meeting someone,
I see
or
it when we have guests on.
yeah, okay, so you do see it sometimes. I forget. Meeting new people, I don't know how to have normal conversations to start out, right? But once I get in my groove, then it's fine. But if someone is giving me compliments, some of that comes out too, right? Like I don't like I appreciate it, but also it's like thank you. Like I feel like I'm getting so small, right? Like thanks. I don't know what it is, but that's funny. I don't even know how we
I
got on this topic.
I will sometimes respond by praising somebody else. Like I almost deflect it. And I'm like, no, no, no,
That
that's
should go
way
over
too
there.
much for me. Giving me too much. Yeah. I tend to not just say, oh, thanks. I tend to stumble and be like, but it wasn't just me. Okay. You need to get this straight. It was all these other people that helped me. Stop putting me on a pedestal, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. That's what I do sometimes too.
That's okay. We're trying to give everyone
Mom,
some
you made
love.
me this way. These are the consequences of your actions.
Thanks, mom.
um,
So the sharks.
okay. Yeah. So I asked a friend this last night as we were just chilling and hanging out that, I mean, the Sharks have gotten better over the season, which is not surprising to me. Like, given the fact that the roster has changed significantly, like from one season to the next, like a lot of these guys are, with the exception of Couture and Hurdle, which were both out last game. So even with them both out, and I understand we were playing the Blue Jackets, they recently let their GM go, and I don't know, I don't really follow this team, but it seemed like yeah, they're trying to find themselves with a lot of the moves that they made in the off season, and things have not been working out so well for them. So they're kind of in that same sort of, not necessarily a rebuild, but they're not necessarily one of the guys that is going to be talked about to make the playoffs. So, but they looked pretty good last night. There were a lot of chances that if Elvis Merzlikin was not in net, I think we would have gotten like way more goals. But I was curious to get your thoughts on, there are a number of players who we knew from the get-go were project players, potential that, they could take this time on our team to prove themselves, to end up on another team to help them out for the playoffs, not necessarily in our future, notably folks like Anthony Duclair, who I think I'm fine either way. Like, I prefer that we trade him to kind of help our team out in the long run. But last night we were really like hoping he would get
His
a
hacking.
hat trick.
Yeah.
He just, like, every time he seemed to get the puck, like me and my friend were just like oh my god, like he is like on his game tonight. He was so quick last night. Um,
He was feeling good in those jerseys.
yeah, he was really feeling it. Um, I kind of still don't care about Hoffman, and half the
He
time
hasn't done anything.
I was like, is he out there? Is he
I
injured?
forgot
Did
he
we
was on the
scratch
team.
him? Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with him. Like I really don't think he's shown enough for us to, like, if anything, like we'd have to give something extra for someone to take him
Yeah.
off our hands. And at the end of the day, like I think he's just going to end up walking.
Yeah.
So I thought we could maybe go down the line and kind of get thoughts on how we feel about, um,
Who's staying? Who's
I
going?
guess, like how do I want to put this? So someone that you want to see for the future, like as part of like the future, and then secondarily, like whether you want to see them like signed, traded. I guess we'll kind of like work with that. So Logan Couture,
I mean, obviously he's staying, right? He's captain.
not
Nobody's.
obviously,
I guess it's not obvious. He's injured.
because
I
Greer
don't see him getting
said
traded
you don't think he's getting traded.
if he's injured, because he's.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If he
But
wasn't, I could see him as a potential piece to be moved because he.
like he's ultimately going to have to be the one to say so. Granted, he doesn't have a no movement clause, but I think I saw somewhere that his no trade clause, the modified no trade clause has like 3 teams on it or something. So I kind of feel like, because what, he's 34 right now, we're not going to be relevant for like the next 3 to
3 years.
4 years. And by then he's going to be 38. Like, do you think he sticks around that whole time?
I think he
I kind of feel
would.
like his personality he
He
would.
would, but whether or not his body will allow him to play when he's 38 is a different story, especially with what he's dealing with now. If he's healthy, I could see him being traded because he adds a lot of value as a playoff player. We always call him clutcher because he comes in clutch a lot at the end of games. He's a good player. It's just I don't see him as a great captain, right? Like I don't think
Yeah.
he's no hate, but I don't think he's kind of like made a name for himself as a captain. If anything, I feel like Hurdle's put in that work this season specifically, but that's neither here or there. Um, should we just start going down the list quickly?
Yeah. So I guess my closing thoughts on Logan, like I would be interested to see if he would be willing to be traded about like a couple of years from now. So at least there's still a bit of value on his contract. We would probably have to retain a certain amount of it. But then I can also see him, just his personality, like he wants to like stick around and, I'm the captain of this team. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, but by the time we actually are in talks again, you'll be like 38. And I don't, and us being relevant around that time doesn't mean that I think we're going to be like going for the cup.
Yeah.
So,
I'm actually
but
looking at this list, and we only have like 6 players on the team that the Sharks have drafted. Everyone else has been traded for or signed in free agency or something. Waivers claimed. That's wild.
mhm.
That's anyways. Granlund, I think Greer has already said that he sees him as a future piece for the team. I really like how he's developed. he had such an awful start in the season. We all were haters and we're like, what is this guy doing? He keeps losing the puck. He looks like he doesn't know how
Yeah.
to play hockey out there. And then all of a sudden everything switched for him. And I've really been enjoying his game and what he's brought to the team. He seems to be one of the glue pieces when he's out there. He's making really smart plays. He's fun to watch, even if he's not like scoring or anything. He's doing really important things on the ice. So I could see him staying. But again, it's one of those things like how long would he be willing to stay to help with this rebuild?
Yeah.
Well, Greer could trade him because he's been doing so well. On the right team, he could be a really important piece for a cup contender.
Yeah, I see if like he doesn't get traded in this current season, like potentially like a short contract extension. If you're saying that Greer has come out and said that he likes what he's doing and wants him to be part of like the future, but given that he's already entered his 30s and what we've already talked about with like the future of the Sharks, like yeah, these guys might want to, go to a cup contender, but I can see him like sticking around for like at least a immediate future, if anything, and then they just like reevaluate it from there. Um, but in terms of LeBanc, I think that the train is getting ready to
The
leave.
train has been
Like,
left and left him behind.
well, the train's been at the station for some time and still it's missing some parts. It needs, a couple more repairs before it could get going and
I
like
was done with the bank experiment 3 years ago.
I think it'll be unfortunate if and I think it's going to be really hard to get a team to
Take
agree
him.
to a
Yeah.
trade. I don't want to be in a position where we
Are giving up draft picks to get rid of him.
yeah, like I it's going to be unfortunate if we just let him walk, but yeah, I don't like the amount of like, games that LeBanc has played this season. Like, I really just don't think like any team is really going to care to give up anything to get him, especially when he's going to become a UFA at the end of the season.
Yeah. I
So
don't know. Maybe in a different setting, different team, he could be what he was for us during, the 2019
I
playoffs.
mean, we know from like past seasons that he has the potential. It's just who
It's
knows
hard
what
to
the
tap
heck is
into
up.
it.
Yeah.
uh,
And like in the short time that I saw him playing last night, it's like you could definitely see that he was like he's really. I mean, I'm not saying that he's like not trying, but it's like he didn't really have like an impact.
yeah. Yeah, and then this has been
Yeah,
the same story for the past how many seasons now? We
yeah,
as
and
fans
it's
have been
gotten
very
worse.
frustrated, but whatever,
Like
we'll
if we
see.
still had Wilson, I think he'd like still, or like a previous coach, I think he'd still be in the lineup in some fashion. But just the way that like Quinn's been, he's got all these new pieces. He's got potential down at, like with the Cuda. Like he's got options.
Yeah.
You know.
Hoffman, we already kind of brushed on. We don't. I forgot he was on the team. He's not making any sort of impact. And when he does have the puck on his stick, it's like very minimal what he does. Yeah, I think he's had like 1 or 2 games this season where he actually stood out, but otherwise I forget
Yeah.
his existence. So I don't think that we'll be able to trade him this season, unfortunately. Guess we'll just have to wait out that contract, which isn't long. It's after next season, but still, that's another season of him not doing anything. I could be wrong though. He could pull a Granlund and up his game. Duclair. I would,
It'll be unfortunate to see him go.
yeah, I would love to keep him on the team. He seems like an important personality in the locker room. I love that he is very involved with the Hockey Diversity Alliance and he has his own Anthony Duclair Foundation, very involved with the community. I would love to see him stay here long enough to do something here in San Jose to grow the sport, but that's all outside of hockey, right? If he keeps up this pace with what he did last night, I could see him being moved this season.
Yeah, personality wise, I was just remembering the game before last when Cunnin scored, and then they zoomed in on the bench, and Declare got his like glove up in his face, and it was just like hitting him in the face, like friendly jabs, like. So I mean, vibe wise, it's really nice to see like the guys, especially the newcomers, just kind of integrating themselves and having like the positive feelings and amongst the roster. But yeah, we're trying to see this from perspective of like the future of the Sharks, and as much as it'd be nice to see Anthony Declare be part of the future, like he's kind of like in one of the most movable players, and yeah, I think I will. It'll be bittersweet, but I am looking forward to the trade deadline because I do want to see some things
Yeah,
happen. Please get us something to look forward to.
it's such a bittersweet moment right now for me because it's like I get attached to players really easily, and then knowing that some of them are gonna go is gonna be so sad for the first couple of days, and then you see what we get in return. You're like, all right, I can live with this. Cunnin, I've really enjoyed him joining the team.
I think he's been like early on. It was like especially like last season, I think he got injured early, so we didn't really get to see too much. And this season has been like a bit of a slow start,
He
but
seems pretty consistent.
he's getting there. Yeah, like he's also one of the RFAs, and I'm feeling strongly that Greer is gonna want to keep him.
Yeah. Yeah, he. I feel like he's holding his own on his line, and I forget who he plays with specifically, but
They've been like juggling the line so much, like who knows? Everybody.
either way, I feel like he is able to play really well with whoever is on his wings, or what position do
He
you play?
definitely needs
Yeah,
like he needs a bit of support from his. He's not. I don't feel like he's going to be the one that's like the anchor for whatever line that he's on, but I think he he shows that he can adapt to whatever line that he's put on. So, and he's still young, so I think it'll be like a good player to keep
yeah,
for
I
timing.
think so too. Barbie, I love Barbie as a
He's getting moved.
I love Barbie as a player, but he has struggled this season. So
Yeah,
I don't think we will get a lot in return if he's moved at the deadline this year because of that big drop off. I don't think he's been making as much of an impact this season as he did last. But I don't know if he can get his shit together. He's one of my favorite players to watch out there because he always does like things that you don't really pay attention to off like away from the puck. He does important things for the team to be able to do what they need to do. If he's moved, and I'm going to be sad. But I don't think we're getting a lot in return.
yeah. I think if he like, I would be happy if he sticks around because I think like I think he has. I don't want to say more value, but I think like he's a bit similar to like how Cunnin is, where you can kind of like put him into a different line and he can kind of adapt pretty well to the line mates that he has. But I think Bada Bada like has more potential to anchor the line that he's on. Like every time that you see him out on the ice, he's doing little things to kind of like make the play happen. And I can kind of see like if we were to trade him, he's a bit more of interest for that aspect of his game.
Wait. Does he have a no trade clause? Is that what that means under terms?
Yeah, modified no trade clause. So that means that he's got like a limited amount of teams that
Huh.
he can be traded to.
Interesting. Okay, next one. If Sturm gets traded, I will be very upset. I don't know why I like him so much as a player, but like Barabanov, I feel like he hasn't had much impact this season as he did last season. He he's a pretty solid player. I think he centers the fourth line most of the time, and he's pretty consistent there doing what he does. But he hasn't been very productive this season. If he's moved again, I don't think we will get much in return, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is. I'll be very sad if he is.
I think even though he hasn't produced like on the score sheet, he does a lot of things that I feel like would be very valuable to a team who's looking for someone who's like can at least like do little things like keep it in the zone. You know, he checks people. He, you know, does all these little things that may not necessarily be someone who's like consistently setting up plays and like things like that. And but like I think if we keep him past like this season, like I think his contract is gonna have to be like reasonable for the team.
He still has two. No, he has one more season in his
Yeah.
contract. So maybe we'll keep him for one more season and he could be a trade piece for next, depending how that goes. Because I think Greer really likes him. I really like him.
I think for the things that I mentioned, I think it like Greer is probably looking at him as like a good solid player during this like rebuild. Like we're not trying to find someone who's going to be like, you know, racking up on the score sheet, but he's one of those guys that whatever you need him to do, he's like
Yeah.
versatile.
He's really good on the face-offs.
Yeah.
And I think he's a good role model for the youngsters. Not that he's old or anything, it's just that he just has a bit more experience. Zetterland, I see him as part of the future. We traded Timo for him on top of other players. I don't see him being moved. He's
Yeah.
playing really
No, he's
well.
sticking around. I will find it very odd if he gets moved.
Why
And
did
then I would also question the Timo Meyer trade. Then I would hate that trade more.
yeah.
I'm like, what is this?
What are you doing, Greer? No, I really liked how Zetterlund has stepped up this season, and his bromance with Eklund is super cute. Like you can't separate them now. It's not allowed. It's legal. I won't allow it. No, he has a
And
wicked shot too.
I can't unsee his red face after Jude made mention of that last season. Like I just can't unsee it now. Like every time I see it, like I mentioned that to my friend last night and now he can't unsee it.
He just always
He's
has a
like
red
he
face
said it looks like he's allergic to alcohol. With just how red he
all the
is.
time. Poor kid. Philip Zadina. He's been playing better these past few games. I don't know if he's been playing well enough this season to be kept on this roster, whether or not we trade him. Mm, oh no, he has
I
more.
think he's gonna have to stick around for like a short contract because so I was looking this up last night and so he agreed to be waived and have his contract terminated I think with the Red Wings. So in terms of how we acquired him, at least we didn't give up anything, but he hasn't really shown like he's kind of like a Hoffman where there's been moments throughout the season where you could see the potential, but then
He just drops off for
like
long
he either
stretches.
like doesn't do anything or he like misses the net. And I mean, he's a young guy, and I know that he was like a high draft pick in his year, so it's unclear. But I think if he takes like a reasonable amount for his next salary, his next contract, and it's a short one, like I can see like Greer keeping him for a little bit. But yeah, but I think generally I'd find it like sad if he just walks.
Yeah. No, I guess I could see him staying for the rest of his contract and see how it plays out. Maybe he just needs a little bit to get used to the system here. Who knows? Sometimes these guys don't they don't adjust as quickly as we'd hope. You know, like Zetterlund when he was first traded
Yeah.
here, he didn't do well at the end of last season. He was very out of place, and he had moments where you could see like he had a little shine to him or whatever. But this season, he's really stepped up, and like we've been really enjoying him playing here. So maybe Zadina just needs a bit of time. Eklund obviously is part of the future. He's was
I'd be surprised if he gets moved.
I'd be
I
so
will.
upset because like how are you gonna give up your 7th overall draft pick?
He has been so good this season.
So good. Did you see his moves last night where he so good. Sorry. It was like I don't even know how to explain what happened, but
he just like
dangled through everyone.
like I think it was like I love that. So if we were to go back in time, I still think it makes sense for him to hang back and play in the Swedish league. Like I get concerned when you hear stories about like I don't remember who it was on who was originally on the Canucks and then he got moved around a bunch of times. Talking about how the franchise was they brought him up too soon and like every player kind of adapts and improves at different paces. And I've been like surprised with how well Eklund has adapted to playing at this level and being one of those players that we want him to be eventually. But the fact that he like did it in my mind ahead of schedule has been really exciting to see. But I think the time that he spent with the Swedish league and then the 1 year that he had with the Kuda, I think it all makes sense. And I don't think like folks that wanted him to come up sooner, like I think it was just right. I don't think it made sense for him to come up sooner than he already did. We were not in a place for that to like really matter. But I think this season has been great just with all like the different players on the roster and them trying to figure out like the system of Quinn. Like I think it's going to look much better, like not like playoff contention better next season, but I think like people who we want to have in the long run, like Eklund, like it's going to be really good for their like development.
It gets you excited for the future.
Yeah.
He is a really fun player to watch when he has the puck on his stick. He little twirly twirls and little no look passes here, and it's so fun.
He just needs like there were a few times where like I like he is not afraid to try things out and to push up against like the players who have more experience in the league. There were a few times where he'll try it and then he'll like lose the puck or something, but it's not like he like wasn't like you want the players to be doing that.
Yeah.
And if he's like losing the puck just from like simple plays, it might get you a little like concerned, but like he's definitely and this is probably respect to like the coaching staff. They're probably saying, hey, we're chill if you go out there and try your stuff and
if you lose
we have
puck,
confidence. Yeah, so I'm like seeing that from Eklund, and it's just like really exciting to see like in just him being like 21 and it's his first full season in the NHL and he's on a shitty ass team. Like without a hurdle, without a Logan Couture, and he's like, you know what, I'm stepping up, and this guy's just got like a lot of confidence to back up his game, so it's really exciting to see.
Yeah.
Um,
On the topic of Eklund, I do want to give a shout out to my best friend Alex, Snipe City 20 F420 on Twitter, because every time the slippery Pete thing, every time. That's it.
Slippery Pete.
Anyways, Justin Bailey. While we might have feelings about him outside of hockey, I do like how he's been playing hard on this team. He has been doing some really good things. I can see him being moved because of that. He,
You can see him getting
yeah,
moved. I think Greer's going to
you
keep
think
him.
so? I wouldn't be
I
surprised if we keep
do.
him, but if we're still looking for pieces, he is doing a lot of good things that other teams may want for
That's
the
true.
playoffs. So,
Yeah, he could be a toss up. I wouldn't be surprised if Greer signs him to like, a short 2-3 year contract, especially if we move some of the other guys that we mentioned earlier. Uh, like I was saying to my friend last night, like I wish I kind of had a better feeling for like our forward prospects down in the CUDA, because I think like I had more things to say about the defensive side, but and that kind of like influenced some of like my thoughts on for our defense. But depending on like who's kind of at the doorstep, could potentially come in like at the end of the season, potentially try to get like a roster spot for next season. I think that'll kind of come into play as far as like how many roster spots are going to become vacant
yeah,
after this trade
that
deadline.
makes sense. Carpy?
I've been actually quite happy with him being back on the team. I think we mentioned this like probably at the beginning of the season when we signed him, and the little bit that I remember when we first had him, like he didn't really stick out too much. And so when he was moved, I was kind of like whatever about it. Throughout his time moving to different teams, like he's not going to be the guy that's going to be like on the first or second line and like really generating those chances, but he's been pretty consistent at like what you'd expect from
Mm-hmm.
him in his position. So I kind of want him to stick around.
Yeah, Drew was talking a lot about him on the podcast, not the podcast, the broadcast last night. Wrong
I was
Drew.
like, which Drew?
Drew
What?
Remenda was talking about him on the broadcast last night. How he really loves his game because he's always giving his 110% out there. He's always putting his all in every time, every shift he's out there. He's doing like all the right things, all the defensive plays. He's not the type of player you would expect to be producing, but he does everything else that needs to be done out there. So I feel like this team needs more of those players. So if he's like an example for again the younger guys or anyone else that's going to be coming in, he's going to be setting that example for them to learn. And like this is things you need to do outside of trying to score. So I could see him sticking around. But then again, he could also be
He could be
moved.
a toss up
Yeah.
too. He could be a toss up, but I wouldn't be upset if he sticks around again.
Yeah.
Um, so on defense, so I feel like it does need to be said that we understand that Vlasic's been going through some personal stuff. We've kind of seen it on the side. He was having between him getting divorced officially this season from when it started happening. Like we do need to acknowledge that like it's as much as you try to not let certain things in your life, you know, especially with like personal and work, you try not to let it like intertwine and affect one another. Like that was potentially contributing to why he was kind of not doing so well in the last couple of seasons. And from like my perspective, like it's just been like I will still just be like a little unhappy with signing a player for this long of a contract at the age that they were at. Like I just don't think that ever really makes sense. Um but and same thing with like Logan, like it just those are the type of contracts, and we can go back to like Burns and potentially Eric Carlson. Like I feel like it still makes sense at the end of the day to sign Carlson to that long contract that he got, because he is a super talented defenseman that is like the first couple of years that we had him, he wasn't really doing like what we had hoped that he would. But I still think you make that contract like over and over again. And then like yeah, I just don't have great feelings with these long contracts, especially with like how the Sharks were. Like we weren't like entering our era of like dominating the playoffs. So it was at a time where I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. But because those two players in particular, Vlasic and Couture, we drafted them, they're Sharks, and like all those feelings that come into play. Like I think that kind of steered Doug Wilson's decision making. Like he was a very like friendly hometown discount type of GM, and I think even though like Greer played with Vlasic, like I don't think he's approaching it in the same fashion.
Right.
And he's like 1,000% willing to move Vlasic if he can. Um, but it is nice to kind of see him uh,
Improving.
getting back to his old self a little bit.
Yeah. On the topic of that, I think as fans, we need to, well, we don't, but people in general, because we understand. We need to understand that mental health plays a big part in how you will perform at work. Just because this is a game, just because this is something you as a fan are using as a distraction from the outside world and work, doesn't mean that this is not work for them. And their personal life will always, always, always affect how they perform on the ice. The news that he was getting divorced did not come out until this season, I don't think, or at least it became more known this season. And it all makes sense because, you know, something that big
That was his high school sweetheart, I think. They were together for like
forever.
a
Yeah.
long ass time.
I don't want to get too much into this topic right now, but yeah, you can see how it could affect him and why he wasn't playing so well the past couple seasons. But it is really nice to see him stepping up this year. Like last night, I saw him.
He definitely seems
He
happier.
does. Like him and Hurdle have become the bestest of friends. He's always poking fun at him in the videos that they post on socials. And last night, I saw him knocking players off the puck. Like he was doing defensive things that he was known for when he was in his prime. You know. So it's nice to see him doing better. As a fan, like him playing better on the team, but like in general as a person, it's always nice to see people
Yeah.
doing better. So I don't know if he'll be moved this season because of that contract. Yeah,
It
but
could definitely come into play in the upcoming
yeah,
seasons.
we'll see. We will see.
We'll see if he cares that much to be moved.
Yeah. Ferraro.
Okay, so this was the only player. My friend asked me last night if I was attached to any of the players. And I said, I will be upset if Ferraro leaves, but outside of him, no.
Yeah.
Like, I am not attached to any other players. Like I like our team, but given the situation that we're in right now, I'm looking at the future of the team.
Ferraro has been on the rumor mill, or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
He is one of the better defensemen. He has really stepped up this season. I am going to be so devastated if he is traded because he is my favorite player. Aside from Hurdle, he is my favorite player on this team. I don't know, there's just something about his goofy personality that I always like was drawn to since the moment he had his first
You
interview.
better get if he gets traded and it's like a mid trade, I will be
I'll be
upset
pissed. I don't talk to
because
me for a whole
if
week.
because if you're gonna trade my favorite player, it better be a
Damn good
good
trade.
damn trade,
Like, give me some.
damn good trade.
Ugh.
Um,
We're gonna be protesting outside your office. Bring him back. I can see him being moved as much as I don't want to, but it is what it is. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Go to Ruda.
we're almost done. Jan Ruda, I think he's I can see it being a toss up. He's definitely like a solid defenseman. You can put him with anybody, like we know that there's a number of teams out there right now that could really use defense of help. Um, I think if he doesn't get moved, yeah, he's probably. I mean, he's got 2 years left, so I think it'll be like a toss up. Um,
Send him to the Oilers for Connor McDavid. It sounds pretty fair to me.
why would you do that to him?
Because I don't know. I like chaos.
Kyle Burrows, like I've liked him this season. Like him and Emberson have been my two favorite defensive pickups this season
Yeah.
that I think were really good
Burrows is pretty
on
gritty out
behalf of
there,
Greer.
which is an element that's
Yeah.
been missing since Smith went down.
Nice, inexpensive contracts. They go out there, they know their role. And in particular, they have been paired oftentimes than not with Ferraro, and I think it's just really helped his overall game.
Yeah.
Like they've just worked well with him, and he can focus on the next level of his growth.
Because of his contract, I think he'll probably stay here for at least another season. I don't really see him being moved.
Okay, so this is where my question to my friend last night comes in. We have Kalen Addison, Ohoktuk, and
And
Emberson,
McDonald.
and and I guess I'll throw McDonald in the mix, even though he's a UFA. Like, given that Henry Thrun and Mukmadula are kind of like on the outside looking in, more so, I think next season. Well, even this current season, if Thrun wasn't, I believe he's injured right now. Um, I kind of see Thrun being contending for a roster spot and definitely most likely making it next season. Mukmadulin, I think like he could probably benefit still by spending some time with the AHL, but I could see him coming up more next season. Given those potential of those defensemen who are definitely sticking around in our pipeline, knocking on the door, I kind of feel like one or two of these defensemen we have left could potentially be moved. Out of the four, who would you be okay seeing go?
If you're including McDonald,
It is.
then
Just because I want to even it out.
probably him.
And because he's got 1 year left on his contract right now.
He's a UFA after this season, so I would probably see him leaving because we do need to make room for the other guys. I don't. Henry Thrun, I think it would be silly that we went through the trouble of picking him up from the Ducks the way we did without giving him a legitimate opportunity. I feel like he hasn't really had one this season because either he's struggled or he's injured. Like he's currently injured. He's on the IR. Ohoktiuk, we traded for him. I don't think he's being moved. He was part of the Timo Meyer trade. That doesn't make sense to me. Plus, he's an RFA. Emberson, he hasn't played as much this season, but he's also an RFA, so I'm not really sure between him and Addison. Because Addison has games where he plays really well. Like last night, he had a really, really beautiful assist on Zetterlund's goal. But then he has games where he's not cutting it, you know? Like there's the potential, but maybe he needs time to get used to us out here too. My vote's for McDonald. Like he's done some good stuff, but he's the only UFA, and we need to make room for the younger guys.
I feel like I would be upset if we don't do something that's beneficial if we were to move Addison because of what we gave up for him. That would be like my only thing with Addison. Like I feel like him and maybe McDonald and then thirdly Ohokdu, they're kind of all in the same sort of in my eyes like performance
Mm-hmm.
wise. Like I think they all like have their benefits, but they don't stick out, at least to me, as much as Emerson and Thrun have. So I think it'll be interesting to see if if any of those guys kind of get moved.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I really don't know about Ohokjuk because he was supposed to be one of the top defensive prospects from the Devils that we acquired, and like he's been solid out there. He just hasn't been like, oh my god, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of that's what kind of how I feel when I wrote all three of them together.
They're young.
And maybe it's my bias with Emerson, just the time that I've seen him play with Ferraro. He's just been like he hasn't I think he doesn't stick out so negatively at certain times and the other ones do.
Yeah, for
But
context,
they're all kind of like in the same sort of like they're all with the exception of like McDonald, they're all kind of like it makes sense that they're going to be working out the kinks
yeah, for
in their
context
game.
to our listeners, Addison Ohokjuk and Emberson are all 23 years old. Henry Thrun is 22, so they still have some time to grow as defensemen.
They're 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 I can't think of a good analogy, but everything makes
They're
sense
defensemen are late.
for where
They're
they
late
are.
bloomers,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's it's fun.
And I guess finally, because I don't know if we should even talk about the injured reserve. Like, obviously, Tomash is going to stick around unless he decides that he doesn't want to be here
Yeah,
anymore. I completely forgot about Benning.
me too.
I just like I overall like I've liked the guy and hopefully he can stay healthy next season. Giovanni Smith, like I think he'll just by default because he's injured right now, he's gonna be sticking around. But finally our goaltenders, like I feel like
They've been solid this year.
something needs to happen here.
They either one could be
Well,
trade pieces, to be honest, but I think if you had to choose between the two, Greer might pick Blackwood to stick around.
yeah.
He's been putting up better
I would
numbers.
almost choose Blackfoot just because Greer made the choice to get
Yeah.
him. And Kakinen is carryover.
Yeah, but I mean, he's
um,
been solid, and I think he could use that to his advantage at the deadline.
yeah, no, I think if someone's gonna get moved is Kakinen because
He didn't.
he was a Doug Wilson
Yeah.
trade, and as we've kind of seen like Gru's like slowly making the team in his
Yeah.
image. So I almost feel like, well, anyone who wasn't like handpicked by the GM, start packing your
The thing
bags.
is, like, if you move Kakkonen, do you think he would trade for a different goalie, or would he bring up one of the youngsters who aren't ready to be in this league?
I would not want to bring up any of the Cuda goalies.
Like,
Like
as much
I,
as we love our goalies in the system, it's usually just because they're goalies. I don't think any of them are ready to play in the big leagues.
like I haven't seen many Cuda games this season as much as I would like, but the few times that we have brought someone up, like I don't know how beneficial it would be to have them as a backup and maybe play like 15, 20 games next season versus having them like refine themselves at the AHL level and then be able to like come up the season after next. So I feel like he would probably get somebody who could just be like a decent backup to Blackwood next season who has like several years of NHL experience on their resume. But with like Kakkonen, like I feel like it really wouldn't make sense for us to like sign him. That would mean like he'd either have to take a discount because then he'd be like making more than Blackwood, which like I like how much Kakkonen has improved, but like if we're assuming that Blackwood is kind of like the golden child for Mike Greer right now, like I don't see him making that type of transactional decision. It would be like okay, but yeah. Anyways, we have been talking so freaking long about the Sharks, and if Drew was here, he'd probably be
Dude,
asleep.
it's because he's not
Uh,
here that we're talking about them. We don't get a chance
but
when he's here. It's always talking about the Canucks. Did you
yeah. So
want to quickly touch on the Patrik Laine thing, or save that for next?
yeah, so I just want to briefly touch on something that happened over this past week that I don't know how much it like, well, it made a little bit of like outside of the Twitterverse because Line had retweeted it. Johnny Gaudreau had been asked about it, and he gave a little bit of a brief remark in how he felt. I guess initial reactions. So we're referring to there was a podcast called I don't even remember what the name of this. And anyways, like you
B&B
can't find it anymore.
Roundtable.
They is what?
B&B Roundtable. They deleted their account.
Yeah. So I don't know how Line found this. I but he ended up like the last time he was on Twitter was like well over a year ago. So it's like well, it's possible he could probably just be like scrolling idly and not necessarily active on the platform. But however he came across it, somebody had listened to it, had made a remark, people were curious about it, and this person clipped that particular part of the episode. So the podcast itself hadn't put it out. Well, they put it out in its entirety, but they hadn't gone out of their way to put it out on socials. So to give a generalization of what we're talking about, it was a Blue Jackets podcast. A number of folks were on their episode, and they were, I think, just generally talking about their team. And as we know, Patrik Laine is currently out right now with the NHLPA's Players Assistance Program. He has his own nonprofit that he raises awareness on like men's mental health. So we can only deduce that he's going through something right now, and of course we wish him well. But these fans apparently thought it's really funny to make a comment about how they think that he's potentially thinking about offing himself in a certain fashion with a certain deadly weapon. And when I initially saw this, and all like I came across the I came across it because of Line's retweet where he was like, "This is not okay." And of course, you get curious, like, what is he talking about? And when I listened to the clip, I didn't know what they were talking about. I was like, what?" And I had to go through the
Because they called
comments
it
to
a
figure out.
Remington retirement or something.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And then, you go through the comments and people identify what he's talking about. And after that, I spent, the next hour or so, it was just kind of in my head where I was just thinking, like, God, that is really awful. In general, it's awful to hear somebody saying something like that. But I think it's extra awful that these are apparently fans of this team. And Laine's been on the Blue Jackets for what, a couple seasons now since he was traded by the Jets. And we know that he hasn't been able to complete a full season in a while. And, from the fan perspective, yeah, it can be frustrating. There's this star player and you want to see them like help your team, but he's got other things going on right now that need addressing. And we've seen like a lot of players this season who have taken advantage of it. And a lot of it seems like they are having a hard time coping for one reason or another. They're struggling. And I think it's really great that they are speaking up about it and taking the time away and to all levels of where their team is at. Team that is competitive, team that is not doing so well, regardless of the status of your team, you should be able to take a step back and realize that, you need to, for lack of a better word, be selfish and be like, I have to step away for a bit and focus on myself. And these fans are apparently letting the sport get the better of their decision making with how they talk about their team. And so Patrik Laine saw it, and yeah, like Twitter just kind of blew up that day, and it made its way even to into the locker room. Johnny Gaudreau was asked about it by the media. They were talking about Laine's. I think somebody in the hockey media had been like, "Hey, in response to this, I'm donating X amount to his nonprofit to raise awareness for men's mental health and encourage other people to do the
Well,
same."
it wasn't in
And
response to what had happened with the podcast. He had already made that decision beforehand.
no, not Johnny
Oh,
Gaudreau. There was someone. I want to say it was Pete Blackburn,
okay.
but I only briefly saw his tweet. I don't know if he's the one who started it, but I do know that there was somebody who had saw it and wasn't directly involved with the team and just went, "Hey, Liney's got this, nonprofit that solely, relates to this exact issue. Let's raise awareness and turn this into a positive and donate some money to it." So people did. And then Johnny Gaudreau was asked about how he donates to that same charity and was asked if it has anything to do with what had come out with the podcast. And he said, no, this was something I decided on in the off season. And a paraphrasing, and it has nothing to do with people on a podcast being idiots.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So as we saw, that podcast put out an apology. I did not give them a view. I did see someone's reaction to it, and I saw little clips about it. And on one hand, I will acknowledge that you did put out an apology, but you have a whole lot longer to go with really reflecting on what happened.
Yeah. When I first saw the clip, I was like kind of in disbelief. Like, why would you think? For first of all, that's okay to say, and secondly, knowing like you made this joke specifically because you knew he was in the player assistant program for his mental health. Like, listen, I have talked about this plenty of times on this podcast. I am a big mental health advocate. Like, I have gone through so much. I am still going through so much. I will not make jokes. I will not make light of people's struggles about their mental health. And it it baffles me that people in this world feel okay to make these kind of jokes like nothing. And the fact that this player saw and now all of a sudden you're sorry you said it, right? Because you got caught, not because you said it. It's like, whatever happened to think before you speak? I think we need to be better as fans and consider that hockey players are humans and not just there for your entertainment. Um, yeah, good for Laine though for standing up for himself, because I'd be pissed if that was me. I would have said so much more instead of "Are you guys serious?"
Yeah, so yeah, we just wanted to talk briefly about that just because, we are folks that have a podcast and we're just fans, and we try to make sure that, as much as we find ourselves frustrated at times where we're like, dang, we really hope that this player like could be playing better and stuff like that, but it's like at the end of the day, we don't, like, I'm never in a position of feeling like, oh, I could say whatever I want, because it's not like a player's ever going to come across our tiny podcast. It's just, it's even goes beyond that. It's just like, I would never say something like that to anybody, like even in a situation where you're frustrated, like stuff like that is like never okay to say. Um, and for someone to say that, like, I just feel like they need to spend some time in someone else's shoes, because the mind is can be a very mean and cruel thing to you sometimes.
Yeah, when you're going through it, you can be the meanest person to yourself. Um, yeah, and I feel like most of the people who make these sort of quote unquote jokes are people who haven't really experienced it bad enough to understand what people are going through. So they make light of the situation, right? At least that's what it seems like to me.
So in conclusion, it looks like that podcast had decided, well, there's no coming back from this, and they deleted their socials, they deleted, any evidence of like their podcasts, and yeah, I don't really know where someone goes from there, but
The power of the internet.
this is, I guess this is our little PSA, if there's other podcast folks out there who are just like, the average everyday fans, like, be better, do
Yeah.
better, take this as an example that, like they're human beings, and yeah, we are fans of a team and we want to talk about the team, but that's no excuse to say such like insane things in response to, even beyond just like mental health, like, like, I like, what's the saying, like, treat somebody how you would want to be treated, like if you
I
don't
was
want
literally
somebody
gonna say
to,
that too.
yeah,
Let's go back to kindergarten.
like I think Yeah. Just because you're amongst yourselves, like talking like that, and like the fact that you're putting it out there for other people to listen to, like I think there was a definite like lack of self-reflection, especially when like some people were saying like, it's like one thing for you to record it and there was something that was said, and then maybe in that moment like you didn't react in the right way. Like you still, it's not like it was a live podcast. You still went through the motions of uploading it
Could have edited
and all
out.
this stuff, and in that time, yeah, and in that time, and then especially with their apology, like the opening statement was like in light of comments that were brought to their attention or something like that. Like, dude, you were there though. Like, and you guys clearly knew what that guy was talking about because
Laughed.
you reacted to it like, oh
The only one
no,
who didn't was the
and
lady who was there. She kind of just sat there because she didn't know what they were talking about.
she actually made a way better apology, even given the fact that she wasn't even in on the
Right.
joke. She realized after the fact what they had been talking about, and her response was, letting people know that she was there, letting them know that she doesn't condone this, and then putting out a tweet, like saying, if you are struggling with mental health, here are resources, like all this stuff. She did exponentially more than the people who were actually involved in laughing and reacting to and clearly understanding what was being talked about. So, all right. Well, we don't usually like to end on sad notes, but maybe this is just your PSA to everybody. Do
Be
better.
kind and rewind. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, we've been talking for so long.
All right, that's it. That's the end of the episode.
Yeah. Okay, I'm your host Jay.
I'm Nessa. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.